Everybody, what's going on? It is Sunday night. I am tired, but I promised part 2 to many more videos to come. I think the reason I'm putting it off is because it gets a lot more raw. Some of the things you're gonna hear and some of the things I've done are definitely rated R, to say the least. I'm not holding back. I'm telling my full story to let people know that they don't have to be ashamed of their past and they can bounce back from it. I mean, I never thought I'd get in the past, and here I am, going on month 5, my own apartment, doing my own thing in a new place. And I never once thought I'd be doing that. But, alright, here it goes. Alright, so I ended up getting out of the army. I got a hardship discharge. My grandmother was hurt. I went home, and she had a hip replacement surgery. So she basically just laid around all day, but she was allergic to pain meds. So the morphine, the oxycodone, the Mepridine, whatever pain meds that they were giving her, she wasn't taking. And I would just take them. I'd like replace them with Tylenol, or just bluntly, I'm taking these. And I mean, what are you going to do to a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old boy who's not going to listen to anybody, especially his grandmother? And I've said sorry to her 1,000 times for everything I've done, and she's the one woman in my life who has showed me unconditional love and been there for me through everything. So this is where the story gets pretty crazy. Alright, I moved down to my brother's, right? That first night, it's like the second time I've seen my brother in like 5 years. It was me, him, and his girlfriend. We all went to get haircuts together. We went to Outback, ate, went home, started taking shots. And then I was like, hey Mike, I got my scripts. And he was like, what you got? Xanax and Perks. And he was like, let's go. His girlfriend was like, what are you guys doing? And he was like, don't worry about it. And she knew, she was on to us. But so basically we stayed up all night partying, taking shots of Goldschlager. I was doing way too much Xanax, which if you don't know what that is, it's a benzo. And mixed with alcohol and opiates is a deadly combination. But I built such a high tolerance through the times, which I'll get back to in the other videos. I'm just going basically from my arrest. So everything was fine that night. The next morning we all wake up happy as can be, hit the TV on, got little cartoons, and make some breakfast. And my brother's like, alright, time to go to work, you ready? And I was like, I ain't going to work, I don't got a job. He's like, you're gonna get one. And I was like, yeah, okay buddy, drop me off on Elm Street, which is Main Street. So basically guys, what I did was I took about 10 milligrams of Xanax, which is outlandish. Do not ever do that. It's a blackout for anybody that does not have a tolerance for, and you could die. And on top of that, I took a shot or two before I left the house that morning, and I did at least 2 or 3 pills, like Perk 15s or 30s. And I remember being on Elm Street after my brother dropped me off. I had like $50 in my pocket, and I was like, what am I doing in my life? I'm 20 years old. I just got out of the military, and I've already got a full-blown drug addiction through doctors. And I'm not blaming the doctors, because I was using drugs before them, but they just made it easier to get and to consume more. So I tell people this, and I'm not kidding when I say I did not plan this robbery. It just happened. I went to CMC. I was like, look, I'm not from here. I'm from Berlin, New Hampshire. I'm just here with my brother for a little while. I need a refill on my medications and a referral to a doctor. And the doctor was a little iffy about it, but this is back in 2014, so they did it. After a little talk and whatnot, he gave me 20 Xanax bars and 20 Perk 5s. I remember, like, me sober, like, that's a lot. Like, but me, like, then, I remember looking at the paper and I'm like, the fuck am I gonna do with this? It's gonna last me 10 minutes. I'm gonna give some to my brother. Next thing you know, they're gonna be gone. And then what am I gonna do tomorrow? So I called my brother up. I never told him I was gonna rob this pharmacy. He's dead. Rest in peace. My brother passed away of an overdose. Just about 3 weeks after I got arrested, and I'll get to that. So I call him. I'm like, hey Mike, meet me at the Rite Aid on McGregor Street. I got some scripts. We just need to fill them, and we'll go home, cook dinner. He's like, all right, cool. Jenna's got what do you call that? Crock pot going all day long, whatever. It'll be a good time. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And when we get to Rite Aid, we pull in, and normally he goes in with me. I was like, no, Mike, hold on. He was like, what? I was like, I'll just come get you when it's ready. And he was like, okay. And he just looked at his phone, was texting. And like, I was just on like autopilot mode. Like, I can't believe I did it. It was like an outer body experience. I remember taking a pen. This is exactly what it says, right? Please give me all your oxycodone, 10s, 15s, 20s, 30s, and nobody dies. Now, that's pretty fucking rough words to say to somebody you don't even know. Granted, I didn't have a weapon, and I wouldn't have hurt anybody, because that's just not my style. But, I knew that their policy was to give the drugs up no matter what. They have insurance, they don't want to deal with it, take the shit, go. I said, give my note back, hurry up, and don't give me a fucking GPS bottle. And she comes out, 900 Perk 30s. So I thought. I put 4, 5, zip them up casually, throw my hood on, walk out. I jump in my brother's car, and he's like, why are you running? I was like, I just robbed him. He's like, what? I was like, I just robbed him, go. And he started laughing like it was a joke. I was like, I ain't fucking kidding, man. Like, I zipped down my pocket and pulled out like a pharmaceutical bottle of oxycodone 30s, like 100 of them. He said, what the fuck did you just do? And in my mind at the time, obviously I wasn't right. I was in at least 5 months of getting high all day, every day, full-blown addiction, not thinking clearly. Didn't ever think about the consequences of my actions for my family, myself, my brother, the guilt he must have felt for doing what he did. But I don't blame him. He was on parole, and he just did 5 years, and he didn't want to go back to prison. I've done 3.5 years in prison, and we'll get to that later on in different videos. It's not a place you want to fucking go. So all these kids out there that act all hard and gangster or whatever, man, let that stuff go. You don't fly in there. You gotta be a humble dude, carry yourself respectfully, and just handle your business if it has to be handled. So basically my brother's like, yo, you gotta get out of my car. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what the fuck do you mean what I mean? You just robbed the pharmacy, get out. He's like, I love you, but you're hit. He's like, you're probably going to the feds, just so you know. Try to get away, go. And that was the last time I ever seen my brother in person. And I thought about that for days after I got arrested, just crying. And I'm gonna get to this. I'm actually slow it down. So I jump out the car. I was like, Mike, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. Be safe. I start running off with 800 perk 30s, right? I don't know where the fuck I am. I'm wearing boots, Chippewas, a hoodie. You can't run in that shit. And Manchester, the cop to civilian ratio is high. Like, I think it's like second to highest in New York City. There's like 218 cops here, so that's a lot. So me thinking that I was gonna outsmart these guys while I was all messed up on Xanax and can't even think right, because who in their right mind would rob a pharmacy in midday, 4 o'clock on a whim? Like, that's either a cry for help or I just can't do this anymore and I don't give a fuck. And I think mine's a mix of both. I've had plenty of time to think about it, trust me, and I can't believe I did that. But I remember in the beginning, alright, so this is what happened. I started going through the bottles. I'm in a parking lot. I knew there was going to be a GPS in one of them because they always put them in. I find the GPS bottle. I throw it over a building. I put the rest of the pills back in. I take out my outer jacket, take it off, take my hat off, throw it underneath the car. I stand up. I look around, nobody's looking. I start walking casually. Just so happens that a contractor on CMC Hospital, who is up on a ladder, or whatever you want to call those big ass things, he was watching me and took upon himself to call the cops and say, hey, we got a guy here, about 6 feet tall, scruffy beard, white, going through pill bottles about 2 parking lots from the Rite Aid. And obviously the police knew. They just got an emergency call, because when you rob a pharmacy or anything crazy like that, bank, they got a button right underneath the counter that they hit, and it automatically sends signals out to the company that tracks the GPS and all the local cops. And I've never been arrested in my life before that, besides one petty thing with a couple of my boys when I was like 17, and I wasn't even drinking, so I didn't even get filed for it. But basically the cop started driving by me because I was walking like really casually, like, you know what I mean, just whatever. And he stops, looks at me, keeps going. I was like, yes. I keep walking casually. I get to the top of the stairs. I hear him hit that shit in reverse. I had to start running. And that's the last thing I really like was in my body for. Like, it was an outer body experience. I remember coming up on this hill. It felt like slow motion. I was running, and in my head I realized what I just did. I'm done. Like, this ain't game. Like, I remember thinking at 20 years old, I've watched Locked Up Raw. This is gonna be my life for the next 10 years in a federal prison if I'm fucking lucky. So the cop, Andrew Fleming, I'm allowed to say his name because it's in my paperwork. He ran at me with his hand on his gun, saying, "Don't move." I wasn't moving. I was like this, like ready for like the impact of him smashing into me. So I didn't even think about it. He pulls his gun out. My first instinct was to grab it. So we get in a struggle. That's a no-no. If there wasn't other people around, I'd been dead. It says right in my minimus. Minimus is all your paperwork with all your details and co-defendants. So basically we struggle. I outpower him because he was just a little guy. I get the gun. I realize, what do I want to do? 20 years in federal prison? a federal crime, robbing a pharmacy and taking a gun from a cop, I gave up right there. I dropped it. I'm sorry. I fell to the ground. Even though I fell, the fact that I struggled, they still beat the shit out of me, which is expected, you know what I mean? So they get me on the ground. They're like, you like taking guns from cops, huh? They're hitting me. They split my lip open, black eyes. They like cuffed me up so tight. To this day, I still have scars in my wrist that I was bleeding from behind. And they leaned me up against the paddy wagon, they call them. And I had 9 bottles on me, and they didn't know how much I really had. So I was like leaning up against on one side, and a female officer patted me out, and she only found the 4 bottles. And she's like, I got him. She goes back to the evidence bag, seals them. Like 5 minutes going by, and I'm like thinking in my delusional mind, shit, at least I get to do something on the ride back to fucking my new home. About a minute later, a cop comes up to me and searches me again, the sergeant. But the craziest thing is, guys, this is how fucked up I was, right? I had a prescription from CMC Hospital, which is right across the street from the Rite Aid. I was on camera walking across the fucking street. The cop's like, he's like, you don't look like a bad kid. What's your deal? And he opens it up. And he's like, you realize you fucked up bad today, don't you? I ain't saying shit. I was like being a wicked douchebag. I remember spitting blood right in the cop's face. I regret that, I'll tell you that. Don't ever do that. Because when you get to jail, you're going to have a fall. So, basically, I was so wild that they just threw me in and took me straight to jail. No booking. You'll never find a mugshot of me because I was so out of it. I realized I just threw my whole life away. I was like, what do I got to lose? But that's not the way to think. Now I know how to think. Back then, I wasn't fully capable of thinking things out, I think, because of the drugs, obviously. I've always been a witty guy, good sense of humor, smart, if I apply myself. So, this is where it gets really bad. I get to Valley Street Jail. I got like 5 cops pulling me in, like pushing me down. I'm trying to stand. I'm so messed up, I can't even stand. They're like, stand the fuck up. And I was like, I'm trying. And I was like bleeding. And they're like, get him a nurse, whatever. I needed stitches, whatever else I needed. And on the way to the hole, I remember this big ass sergeant, this big roided out monkey. I'm not even going to say his name because I live in the same town. He's like, you play anything with me, you're going to have a bad day. Worse than you've already had. And I didn't give a shit at that point. I was like, all right, then do something, bitch. In front of everybody. So I just dissed this jack, huge, egotistical sergeant in front of his whole crew. So we finally get to the hole through a bunch of corridors and locked doors. And I've only seen this on TV. And then I look at it and I'm like, shit. I'm here. I'm in locked up raw right now. In Valley Street is like rated 2nd worst jail in the country per conditions and people. So I get to the hole. The normal cops don't come with them, obviously. They stay back in the gate. So now I got 5 COs. And they bring me in a room. They're like, we're uncuffing you. I want to go uncuff. And they're like, stop resisting. They slammed my fucking head against the wall. And obviously I freaked out. I just didn't care. I started like trying to get out of the grasp, which you can't. I remember the big guy grabbing me like this, picking me up and slamming me on the mattress. And the mattresses are like this thick. And it knocked the wind right out of me. But I kept struggling. And they were just doing what they do. That's just the way it works in there. I never once considered filing charges or pursuing, like suing them. It's just a part of it. I probably deserve that shit for what I did. They wouldn't let me use the phone for about 4 or 5 days, I believe, because they didn't want me calling a lawyer while my stuff looked really bad, like my face, my black eyes and whatnot, which I didn't care anyways. So I actually went 12 days without talking to anybody besides my brother. The lieutenant that worked there was a veteran in the Marine Corps, and he kind of took a liking to me right off because I didn't care. He's like, "You're just making this worse for yourself." I was like, "Listen, you realize what I just did? I just committed a federal crime, took a gun from a police officer, spit blood in 3 different police officers' faces. That's like 3 assaults right there. I'm doing like 8 to 15 years, whatever. I don't care. You ain't gonna make me do anything. You can lock my hands up, but you can't lock this up." And he was like, "I believe you." He's like, I'm not even kidding. He's like, "I've seen a lot of people and I know it." They didn't want to deal with me because I could be a handful. And the reason it came to myself for that is because I wanted to call my lawyer. And they're like, "Shut the fuck up, bitch," and walk by my door. And I was like, "Oh yeah, motherfuckers." I take my blanket and pillow, shove it in the toilet, which seems kind of childish, but I had no other way to get back at them to ruin their shift. So I'm hitting the flush button. Pop, pop, pop. They don't notice till it's like 10 flushes deep. By this time, water is flooding out my cell. And when water floods the cell, everything is soaked. And it just starts dripping off the tier onto like the floor. And the COs get so angry. And I remember they come up there and they had me in a suicide vest, and they wanted to go spray me with like mace or whatever it was, and they put it on impact. And I remember taking off that suicide vest and covering that cubby hole, and that guy ripped it right out. And this is kind of funny, like he hit me right in the private parts, just for any kids listening. He got me right in the jump. I remember jumping up on the bed, and I was like, okay, but obviously my voice was probably a lot higher, and I was screeching and probably crying. I was like, "Ah, no." And they're like, "You gonna stop now?" But then my pride was like, "Fuck no." I put a wet pillow in the sink and put it over my face. And they had a video camera recording me. It took like 4 minutes to take me down because they couldn't open the cell until I got down next to the door, crossed my feet, and put my hands like this. I was like, "I'm not getting down in the shitty, pissy water for you guys to beat the shit out of me and put me in the chair." They're like, "Drew, man, just stop. We're so sick of this. We can't handle you. If you keep this up, we're going to send you to prison and you're going to do your pre-trial time in SHU." I was like, "I don't give a fuck. Do it." And they're like, "All right, we'll see." So I ended up doing it ultimately. They didn't hurt me. They put me in the chair. They check on me like every once an hour. They'd be like, "You good? You calm now?" And I'd be like, "I'm fine." And they'd be like, "All right, good. We'll come back in an hour." They left me in the chair for like 5 hours, I think. And then the lieutenant, I can't remember his name, it's been so long, came up to me and was like, "Look, it's going to go down one of 2 ways. You're going to have an easy stay here or a bad stay. I know you have no record and you've never done this before, but you go to the prison acting like this and you're probably not going to go home alive, or you're going to be in a coma." And that just resonated with me. So for the next 12 days, I literally just hung out, didn't do nothing, didn't talk to no cops. Yes, no, that's all I said to them. Some days, like, it was such a shock to them that they'd be like, "Yo, Drew, you alright?" And I wouldn't even answer them. And then the video stops at 25 minutes, guys. So I'm going to upload another one tomorrow. But basically, that was my 12th day. Was the day I got the news that my brother died. A cop walked by the door, popped it open, was like, "We just got news that your brother overdosed at work. I'm sorry, we'll let you use the phone when you come out for tier time. Clink. And then I had to handle it myself. Alright guys, I'll talk to you soon.